At the orphanage, a millionaire enters with his daughter to adopt a sister, but is faced with a frightening sight. 3 girls identical to his daughter stare at him, as if the past is coming back to haunt him. Years ago, his wife gave birth to 4 babies, but only one survived. Now faced with this disturbing mystery, he must discover the truth before it's too late. If this story interests you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, tell us which city you're watching us from, and we'll keep going. The morning sun streamed through the large windows of the luxurious apartment, illuminating Alex Miller's thoughtful face. At 45, the tech mogul was the picture of success. Graying hair at the temples, an impeccable suit, and a piercing gaze. That had already closed multi-million-dollar deals, but that morning, his face bore a shadow that not even his fortune could dispel. His eyes scanned the living room, filled with expensive furniture and works of art, until they settled on a photograph on the fireplace. In it, a woman with brown hair and a radiant smile was hugging him. Isabel, his wife, immortalized in that image 10 years ago when life still seemed perfect. A sound of hurried footsteps interrupted his thoughts. Clara, his 10-year-old daughter, came running into the room, her brown hair bouncing with each movement. "Dad, look what I made in art class," the girl exclaimed, holding out a colorful drawing. Alex forced a smile, taking the paper from his daughter's hands. It was a portrait of the family, him, Clara, and an empty space next to it where Isabel should be. "It's beautiful, dear," he said, feeling a lump in his throat. "You have so much talent." Clara smiled, but her eyes, identical to her mother's, revealed a sadness that a child her age should not know. "I wish Mommy could see," she murmured, looking down. Alex felt his heart ache. Ever since Isabel passed away during childbirth, he had devoted himself entirely to Clara, determined to fill the void left by her mother's absence. But looking at his daughter at that moment, he realized that all the expensive gifts, the luxurious trips, and the best schools in the country were not enough to heal the wound they both carried. "Come here," he called, opening his arms. Clara ran into her father's embrace, burying her face in his chest. "Your mother would be very proud of you, you know?" The girl nodded but remained silent. Alex stroked her hair, remembering how Isabel used to do the same gesture. Longing hit him like a wave, bringing back memories he had struggled to keep submerged. "Father," Clara said, finally breaking the silence, "why don't we have anyone else? It's just the 2 of us." The question took Alex by surprise. He had noticed how lonely Clara felt, especially when she saw other children with their siblings. But hearing the question put so bluntly made him realize he could no longer ignore the problem. "Well, we have Donna Teresa," he replied, referring to the housekeeper who had worked for them for years. Clara rolled her eyes. "Miss Teresa is nice, but she's not family. It's not the same thing." Alex sighed, recognizing the truth in his daughter's words. Despite all his efforts, he could not completely fill the void left by Isabel's absence. Clara needed more than just a busy father and a housekeeper. "Would you like to have a brother or a sister?" he asked hesitantly. Clara's eyes lit up. "Really? Can we have it?" The girl's excitement made Alex smile, but it also brought a pang of guilt. Why hadn't he thought of this before? Maybe because the idea of bringing another child into the family felt, somehow, like a betrayal of Isabel's memory. "Well, it's not that simple," he explained, choosing his words carefully. "But we can think about adoption. What do you think?" Clara jumped for joy, hugging her father tightly. "That would be amazing. Can we go today, please, Dad?" Alex laughed, caught up in his daughter's enthusiasm. "Calm down, young lady. These things take time, but I promise we'll look at the options, okay?" While Clara ran to tell Donna Teresa the news, Alex stood still, looking at Isabel's photograph. "What would you think of this, my love?" he murmured to the smiling image. That night, after Clara went to bed, Alex spent hours researching the adoption process. The idea, which had initially seemed daunting, began to take shape in his mind. Perhaps it was exactly what his little family needed: a fresh start, a chance to fill the void that had haunted them for so long. As he browsed through adoption agency websites, one in particular caught his eye: Orfanato Luz do Amanhã. Something About the name and the warm description drew him in. He decided that would be the first place they would visit. The next morning, over coffee, Alex announced to Clara that they would be visiting the orphanage over the weekend. The little girl could barely contain her excitement, bombarding her father with questions about what her new sister or brother would be like. "Remember, Clara," Alex warned gently, "we can't be sure we'll find someone right away. These things can take time." But Clara was determined. "I know we'll find it, Dad. I feel it inside," she said, placing her hand over her heart. As the week went on, Alex found himself getting more and more involved in the idea. He began to imagine what it would be like to have another child running around the house, filling the empty rooms with laughter and play. The prospect, which had once terrified him, now filled him with hope. On Saturday morning, father and daughter prepared for their visit to the orphanage. Clara chose her favorite dress, while Alex opted for more casual clothes, not wanting to intimidate the children with his usual executive appearance. "I'm nervous," Alex confessed to Donna Teresa as he waited for Clara to finish getting ready. The housekeeper smiled, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. "You're doing the right thing, Mr. Alex. Donna Isabel would be proud." Her words brought tears to Alex's eyes, but he quickly blinked them back as he heard Clara's footsteps coming down the stairs. "I'm ready, Dad," the girl announced, beaming. Alex grabbed his car keys, feeling a mixture of anxiety and anticipation. As they left the apartment, he couldn't help but think that they were about to turn a major page in their lives. What awaited them at the orphanage of tomorrow? What child could fill the void in their hearts? What Alex didn't know was that this visit would change their lives in ways he could never have imagined. Fate had plans that went beyond simply finding a new member for his family. It was about to unearth long-buried secrets and confront him with a truth that would shake the foundations of everything he believed to be real. As the car pulled out of the building's garage, father and daughter exchanged a knowing look. The journey that awaited them would be much more than a simple visit to an orphanage. It would be the beginning of a search for answers, for healing, and above all, for a complete family. Alex's car snaked through the streets of the capital, leaving behind the skyscrapers and entering more residential neighborhoods. Clara, sitting in the passenger seat, didn't stop talking, her excitement growing with every kilometer traveled. "What do you think it'll be like there, Dad?" she asked for the third time since they'd left home. Alex smiled, keeping his eyes on the road. "I don't know, honey, but I'm sure it will be a special experience." After about 40 minutes of driving, they arrived in a quiet neighborhood on the outskirts of the city. The Orfanato Luz do Amanhã occupied a large plot of land, surrounded by leafy trees. The main building, an old but well-preserved structure, featured a pastel-colored facade and large windows. As he parked the car, Alex felt a mixture of anxiety and anticipation. Clara, on the other hand, could barely contain her excitement, jumping out of the vehicle as soon as it stopped. "Come on, Dad, quickly!" she exclaimed, pulling him by the hand. Together they walked to the entrance of the orphanage. A carved wooden sign with the name Light of Tomorrow greeted them, swaying gently in the morning breeze. Alex rang the doorbell, and as they waited, he noticed the distant sound of children's laughter coming from the back of the property. The door opened, revealing a middle-aged woman with grey hair tied back in a bun. Her eyes behind thin-framed glasses emanated a mixture of kindness and authority. "Welcome to the Light of Tomorrow orphanage," she said with a warm smile. "I'm Helena Fernandez, the director. How can I help you?" Alex introduced himself, briefly explaining the reason for his visit. Helena invited them in, leading them down a hallway decorated with children's drawings and photographs of smiling children. "The children are in the courtyard now, enjoying the morning sun," Helena explained as they walked. "Would you like to meet them, Mr. Miller?" Before Alex could respond, Clara interjected enthusiastically, "Yes, please." Helena laughed softly at the girl's excitement. "Very well then, this way, please." They headed to the back of the building, where a large green area stretched out. Swings, slides, and a sandpit occupied part of the space, while dozens of children of various ages played and ran around. Clara was immediately enchanted by the scene, her eyes shining with excitement. Can I go play with them, Dad? Alex hesitated. For a moment, but Helena's encouraging look reassured him. Sure, honey, just don't go too far, okay? As Clara ran towards a group of children near the swings, Alex and Helena sat on a nearby bench, from where they could observe the entire courtyard. Your daughter is adorable, Helena commented. She seems very excited about the idea of having a brother or sister. Alex nodded, a wistful smile on his lips. Yes, she is. Clara misses having a closer companion. You know, we lost my wife during childbirth and... He paused, feeling the familiar twinge of pain at the mention of Isabel. Helena placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. I am so sorry for your loss, Mr. Muller. The decision to adopt is a noble one and can bring much joy to both you and the child. As they talked about the adoption process and the available children, Alex noticed movement in the corner of the courtyard. A girl about Clara's age was leaving the main building, accompanied by one of the caregivers. It was at that moment that Alex's world seemed to stop. The little girl had wavy brown hair, just like Clara's. Her eyes, even from a distance, had a familiar sparkle. And when she smiled at the caregiver, Alex felt as if he were looking into a mirror of his own daughter. Who is that girl? He asked, his voice shaking. Helena followed his gaze and smiled. Ah, that's Sophia. She's 10 years old and... But Alex barely listened. His eyes were fixed on Sophia, watching every movement, every gesture. The resemblance to Clara was striking, almost supernatural. At that moment, Clara came running back, panting and smiling. Dad, look who I met! She stopped abruptly when she saw Sophia. The two girls stared at each other, as if seeing their own reflections in an impossible mirror. The silence that followed was deafening. Alex looked from Clara to Sophia and back again, his mind spinning, in a jumble of thoughts and emotions. Helena, sensing the sudden tension, tried to intervene. Sophia, dear, come here and meet our visitors. Sophia approached hesitantly, her eyes never leaving Clara. As the two girls stood side by side, the resemblance became even more evident. It wasn't just a superficial resemblance, it was like they were two drops of water. Alex felt his heart race. Something was deeply wrong, or perhaps in some inexplicable way, deeply right. Helena, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. How is this possible? The orphanage director looked equally shocked, her eyes wide behind her glasses. I don't know, Mr. Muller. I never noticed. I mean, the resemblance is uncanny, but... Clara and Sophia continued to stare at each other, a mixture of fascination and confusion on their identical faces. Finally, Clara broke the silence. Hi, she said shyly. I'm Clara. Sophia smiled, the same smile Alex saw on Clara every day. Hi, Clara. I'm Sophia. The two girls laughed nervously, as if sharing a private joke that no one else understood. Alex stood up abruptly. Helena, we need to talk, in private. The principal nodded, looking as troubled as he did. Of course, Mr. Muller. Please, follow me to my office. As they followed Helena back to the main building, Alex took one last look at the two girls. Clara and Sophia were already chatting animatedly, like old friends reuniting after a long separation. Alex's heart was filled with questions. How was such a resemblance possible? What was Sophia's story? And most importantly, what did this mean for her family? As he walked into Helena's office, Alex knew he was about to embark on a journey that would change his life forever. The truth, whatever it was about to come to light, and he was determined to find it no matter the cost. Helena Fernandez's office was a reflection of her personality, organized, welcoming, but with an air of mystery. Shelves filled with books covered one entire wall, while another displayed dozens of photographs of smiling children. Success stories from the orphanage, Alex assumed. Taking a seat behind her oak desk, Helena gestured for Alex to take the chair across from her. The businessman noticed that the director's hands were shaking slightly as she arranged some papers. Mr. Muller, Helena began, her voice calm but with an underlying tension. I understand your surprise. The resemblance between Clara and Sophia is indeed extraordinary. Alex leaned forward, his eyes locking with the principal's. Extraordinary is an understatement, Mrs. Fernandez. They're identical. How is that possible? Helena sighed deeply, removing her glasses and rubbing the bridge of her nose. Mr. Mueller, I don't have an explanation. Sophia arrived at the orphanage when she was just a baby. Her biological parents are unknown. Unknown? Alex repeated, incredulous. What do you mean, there are no records? The director hesitated for a moment before answering. Sophia's records are incomplete. She was left here by a woman who claimed to be a distant aunt, unable to care for the child. We have no information about her biological parents. Alex felt a wave of frustration rise inside him. Something wasn't right. The pieces didn't fit together. Ms. Fernandez, he said, trying to remain calm, I understand that there are protocols and confidentiality, but we are facing an extraordinary situation. I need to know more about Sophia's past. Helena seemed to struggle internally for a few moments before speaking. Mr. Mueller, there is something I need to confess. She paused as if gathering courage. Sophia, she is not available for adoption. Alex frowned in confusion. What do you mean? I adopted her, Helena revealed, her voice barely above a whisper. Legally, Sophia is my daughter. The revelation hit Alex like a punch to the gut. He stood up abruptly, walking to the window that overlooked the courtyard. Outside, Clara and Sophia were still chatting animatedly, oblivious to the drama unfolding in the office. Why? Alex asked without turning around. Why adopt her specifically? Helena hesitated again. I got attached to her. Sophia was always special. Alex turned, facing the principal. There was something in her tone of voice, a hint of guilt perhaps, that made him suspicious. Mrs. Fernandez, I feel like there's more to this story than you're telling me. Please, if you know anything that might explain this incredible resemblance between Sophia and Clara, tell me. Helena seemed to be fighting an internal battle, her eyes filled with tears, and she opened her mouth several times before finally speaking. Mr. Mueller, I worked as a nurse before I took over. The management of the orphanage. Alex felt his heart race. Where? At Santa Maria Hospital, she answered, her voice shaking. I was there the night your wife... The world seemed to spin around, Alex. Santa Maria Hospital. The night Isabel left. The pieces of the puzzle began to move, forming a picture he wasn't sure he wanted to see. Continue, he ordered, his voice hoarse with emotion. Helena took a deep breath. I wasn't directly involved in the birth, but I've heard things, rumors about a serious medical error. Alex felt his legs go weak. He leaned on the table to keep from falling. What kind of mistake? I don't know the details, Helena replied, avoiding his gaze. But soon after, I quit. I couldn't work there anymore, knowing that something terrible had happened and been covered up. The silence that followed was heavy, laden with unspoken implications. Alex tried to process everything he was hearing, his brain struggling to connect the dots. And Sophia, he finally asked, how does she fit into all of this? Helena shook her head. I really don't know, Mr. Mueller. She arrived at the orphanage a few months after I started working here. When I first saw her, I felt a connection, like it was my duty to protect her. Alex turned his gaze to the window, watching the two girls in the courtyard. They were like reflections of each other, laughing and joking as if they had known each other for years. I need to look into this, he muttered, more to himself than to Helena. There's something very wrong here, and I'm going to find out what it is. Turning to the principal, Alex said firmly, Ms. Fernandez, I appreciate your honesty, but I need you to understand. I will not give up until I find out the truth about Sophia and her connection to my family. Helena nodded slowly. I understand, Mr. Mueller, and I want to help. Maybe it's time to bury the secrets of the past once and for all. At that moment, a knock on the door interrupted the conversation. It was one of the caregivers, looking worried. Sorry to interrupt, Mrs. Fernandez, but we have a situation in the courtyard. The girls, Clara and Sophia, they've disappeared. Panic gripped Alex. He ran out of the office, followed closely by Helena. The courtyard was in an uproar, with employees and children searching everywhere. As he frantically searched the orphanage grounds, Alex couldn't help but think that this was only the beginning. The truth, long buried, was about to come to light, bringing with it a storm that threatened to destroy everything he knew. But at that moment, only one thing mattered: finding Clara and Sophia. The rest, as scary as it was, would have to wait. Panic spread through the Tomorrow's Light orphanage like a wave. Alex, with his heart racing, ran from one side to the other, calling desperately for Clara. Helena coordinated the employees, dividing them into search groups to cover the entire property. Clara, Sophia, Alex's voice echoed through the courtyard, mixing with the screams of the others. Every second that passed without a response increased his anguish. As he searched a small wooded area at the back of the property, Alex couldn't shake the dark thoughts that plagued him. What if someone had taken the girls? What if they were hurt? The similarities between them, the secrets of their past, everything seemed to blend together in his mind, forming a terrifying puzzle. It was then, as he passed an old oak tree, that he heard it. Muffled laughter coming from above. Alex looked up and his heart nearly stopped. There they were, Clara and Sophia, sitting comfortably on one of the highest branches of the tree, talking animatedly as if they were in their own private world. "Clara!" Alex shouted, a mixture of relief and concern in his voice. "What are you guys doing up there?" The two girls looked down in surprise, as if they had just realized the commotion they had caused. "Hi, Dad," Clara replied, smiling. "We were just talking. Sophia showed me her secret." "Place?" Alex took a deep breath, trying to calm her nerves. "Come down right now, you two. Everyone's looking for you." With the agility typical of 10-year-olds, Clara and Sophia quickly climbed down from the tree. As soon as their feet touched the ground, Alex hugged Clara tightly. "Don't ever do that again, understand?" he said, his voice cracking. "You had me worried." Clara looked genuinely sorry. "I'm sorry, Dad. We didn't mean to scare anyone." Sophia, standing a little way off, watched the scene with a mixture of fascination and sadness. Alex noticed her, gaze, and on impulse, extended his arm, including her in the hug. For a moment, the three of them stood there united. Alex felt something strange, a connection that went beyond logic or reason. It was as if a puzzle had finally come together, long-lost pieces finding their place. Helena came running in, panting. "Thank God you found them." She stopped, taking in the unusual sight. Alex hugging the two identical girls. Slowly, Alex stepped back, looking from Clara to Sophia. "Girls, you gave us quite a scare. Why did you climb up that tree without telling anyone?" Sophia, speaking for the first time, replied shyly, "Sorry, Mr. Muller. It's just that Clara and I discovered so much in common. It felt like we had known each other for years. I wanted to show her my favorite place." Clara nodded enthusiastically. "It's true, Dad. Sophia and I like the same things. We have the same fears. We even finish each other's sentences. It's like as if we were sisters," Sophia added, looking at Clara with a smile. The impact of these words was visible on Alex's face. He exchanged a meaningful look with Helena, who looked equally distraught. "Girls," Alex said, trying to keep her voice steady, "we need to get back to the orphanage now. Everyone is worried." As they walked back, Clara and Sophia walked hand in hand, chatting animatedly. Alex and Helena followed close behind, both lost in thought. "Mr. Muller," Helena whispered, "this goes beyond mere coincidence. The connection between them is—" "I know," Alex interrupted, his voice low and strained, "and I intend to find out exactly what's going on here." Back at the orphanage, the other children and staff greeted Clara and Sophia with a mixture of relief and curiosity. Many noticed for the first time the striking resemblance between the two, and soon whispers began to spread. Alex, realizing the situation, decided it was time to leave. He knelt down in front of Clara. "Honey, we need to go home now." Clara's face twisted into an expression of disappointment. "But Dad, I want to spend more time with Sophia." Sophia, standing nearby, seemed equally reluctant to part with her new friend. Alex felt her heart clench at the sight of the bond the two had, formed in such a short time. "I promise we'll be back soon," he said, looking at the two of them. "Sophia, it was nice meeting you." The girl smiled shyly. "Thank you, Mr. Miller. I hope you come back soon." The goodbyes were emotional. Clara and Sophia hugged for a long time, as if they feared they would never see each other again. Alex watched. The scene with a mix of emotions, tenderness, confusion, and a growing determination to find out the truth. In the car on the way home, Clara kept talking about Sophia and all the things they had in common. Alex listened intently, his mind working furiously to connect the dots. "Father," Clara said suddenly, her voice serious, "do you think it's possible that Sophia is my real sister?" The question took Alex by surprise. He glanced at his daughter, in the rearview mirror, seeing a mixture of hope and fear in her eyes. "I don't know, honey," he answered honestly, "but I promise you I'll find out." That night, after tucking Clara into bed, Alex sat in his office, determined to begin his investigation. He knew the road ahead would be difficult and possibly painful, but the truth had to come out. With a deep sigh, he turned on his computer and began searching. Santa Maria Hospital, Clara's birth records, any information about babies born around the same time. It was the beginning of a journey that would change their lives forever. As the night wore on, Alex couldn't shake the image of Sophia from his mind. There was something about that girl, something beyond her physical resemblance to Clara. It was as if a part of him, long dormant, had awakened. "Isabel," he murmured to the portrait of his late wife on the table, "what really happened that night? What secrets did you take with you?" The questions hung in the air unanswered, but Alex was determined to find them, no matter the cost. For Clara, for Sophia, and for Isabel's memory, he would unravel the mystery that bound their lives together in such an inexplicable way. The days following his visit to the orphanage were a whirlwind for Alex. During the day, he maintained his normal routine, running his tech company and caring for Clara. But his nights were spent relentlessly searching for answers. Sitting in his office, surrounded by piles of papers and with his computer on, Alex sifted through every piece of information he could find about Clara's birth and the events of that fateful night at Santa Maria Hospital. "There has to be something here," he muttered to himself, scanning through yet another medical report. Was during one of these nights of research that Alex stumbled upon something intriguing. A longtime hospital employee, Dr. Marco Kowalski, had abruptly resigned just days after Clara was born. It was too much of a coincidence to ignore. Determined to follow up on this lead, Alex hired a private investigator to locate Dr. Kowalski. The search took weeks, but it finally paid off. "Mr. Müller," the investigator said into the phone, "we have found Dr. Kowalski. He is living under an assumed name in a small town in the countryside." Alex felt his heart race. "Great job. Send me the address. I'll go talk to him personally." That night, as he prepared for the trip, Alex was surprised by Clara entering his room. "Dad, are you going on a trip?" she asked, noticing the suitcase on the bed. Alex hesitated for a moment before answering, "Yes, dear, I have some business to attend to." Clara looked at him with a serious expression beyond her years. "It's about Sophia, isn't it? You're trying to find out if we're really sisters." His daughter's perceptiveness took him by surprise. Alex knelt down, getting to eye level with her. "Clara, I promised I would find out the truth, remember? That's what I'm trying to do. But I need you to be patient and trust me, okay?" The girl nodded, hugging her father tightly. "I trust you, Dad. Just bring Sophia back to us, please." Clara's words echoed in Alex's mind the entire journey into the countryside. He knew he was about to unearth secrets that could change their lives forever. Arriving in the small town where Dr. Kowalski lived, Alex felt a mixture of anxiety and determination. The doctor's home was modest, almost hidden at the end of a tree-lined street. With his heart racing, Alex knocked on the door. After a few tense moments, it opened, revealing a middle-aged man with gray hair and tired eyes. "Dr. Marco Kowalski?" Alex asked, even though he already knew the answer. The man paled visibly. Who are you?" "My name is Alex Müller. I believe we have a lot to talk about what happened at Santa Maria Hospital 10 years ago. Dr. Kowalski looked like he was about to faint. He looked around nervously before whispering, "Come in, quickly." Once inside the house, the doctor closed all the curtains and locked the door. His paranoid behavior only increased Alex's suspicions. "How did you find me?" Dr. Kowalski asked, his voice shaking. "That doesn't matter," Alex replied firmly. "What matters is the truth. What happened the night my wife, Isabel Miller, gave birth?" The doctor slumped into a chair, covering his face with his hands. "I knew this day would come," he murmured. "I knew the past would catch up with us eventually." Alex stepped closer, his voice a mix of pleading and demanding. "Please, Dr. Kowalski, I need to know. I have a daughter, Clara, and I recently met a girl named Sophia who looks just like her. What's going on?" Hearing the names, Dr. Kowalski jerked his head up, his eyes wide with shock. "Clara and Sophia? They met?" The doctor's reaction confirmed Alex's suspicions. There was indeed a connection. Yes, they met, and now I demand to know the truth, all of it. Dr. Kowalski took a deep breath as if preparing to reveal a long-kept secret. "Mr. Miller, what I'm about to tell you will change everything you think you know about that night. Are you ready for that?" Alex nodded, feeling like he was about to cross the point of no return. "I am. Please tell me everything." The doctor stood up and walked over to a bookshelf. From it, he pulled out an old dusty folder. "These are the true records of that night, records that should never come to light." As Dr. Kowalski opened the folder, Alex felt his world begin to spin. The revelations that were about to come to light had the power to redefine everything he believed about his family, about Clara, about the loss of Isabel. "Mr. Müller," the doctor began, his voice thick with guilt and regret, "your wife did not give birth to just one child that night. There were 4. The shock of the revelation hit Alex like a bolt of lightning. Quadruplets. Clara wasn't an only child. Sophia wasn't just a stunning coincidence. They were sisters, and there were 2 more. As Dr. Kowalski began to detail the events of that fateful night, Alex felt his world crumble and rebuild at the same time. The truth, so long buried, finally came to light, bringing with it promises of redemption and the weight of decades of secrets. Alex's journey was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. The silence that followed Dr. Kowalski's revelation was almost palpable. Alex felt as if the air had been sucked out of the room. Quadruplets. The word echoed in his mind, challenging everything he thought he knew about his family. How is this possible?" Alex finally managed to stammer, his voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Kowalski sighed deeply, the weight of a decade of secrets visible on his slumped shoulders. "It was a chaotic night, Mr. Müller. Your wife went into premature labor. The babies were born very small, fragile." The doctor paused as if gathering the courage to continue. 3 of them didn't seem to be breathing. In the rush of the moment, they were declared dead. Alex felt his heart tighten. The pain of losing Isabel, always present, was now mixed with a new anguish. "But Clara survived," he said, more to himself than to the doctor. "Yes," Dr. Kowalski confirmed, "Clara was the strongest of the 4, but then, so what?" Alex pressed, sensing he was about to hear the worst. "Minutes later, we realized we had made a terrible mistake. The other 3 babies, they were alive, weak, but alive." The shock of the revelation hit Alex like a punch to the gut. You declared my daughters dead when they were alive." The guilt on Dr. Kowalski's face was evident. "This was a catastrophic mistake. We panicked. If it came out that we had wrongly declared 3 newborns dead, it would be the end of our careers, of the hospital. So you decided to cover it. All up," Alex concluded, his voice cold with restrained anger. The doctor nodded sadly. "A nurse, Helena, offered to take the babies to an orphanage. She couldn't bear the thought of, well, you know." Alex felt his head spin. Helena, the orphanage, director. It was all starting to make sense in a terrible way. "And Isabel?" he asked, dreading the answer. "Did she know?" Dr. Kowalski shook his head. His wife never knew. She didn't make it through the birth. The tears Alex had been holding back finally spilled over. The loss of Isabel, which he had been carrying for a decade, now took on a new weight. She had left without knowing that she had given birth to 4 daughters, not just one. Why? Alex asked, his voice cracking. Why keep this secret for so long? The doctor looked old, consumed by guilt. Fear, Mr. Muller. Fear of the consequences. Fear of facing what we had done. But not a day goes by that I don't regret it deeply. Alex stood abruptly, anger and pain warring inside him. You stole 10 years from me. 10 years I could have spent with my daughters. 10 years Clara could have had sisters. Dr. Kowalski didn't try to defend himself. He just nodded, accepting the accusations. I know that nothing I say can fix what we've done, but maybe there's still time to right some wrongs. Alex stared at him, a mix of emotions on his face. What do you mean? The other 2 girls, the doctor explained, they must be in the same orphanage as Sophia, Helena. She promised to keep them together. Realization hit Alex like a wave. Not just Sophia, but 2 other girls. 2 other daughters he had never met, who had grown up not knowing who they really were. I need to find them, Alex said, more to himself than to the doctor. I need to bring them home. Dr. Kowalski nodded, handing the folder to Alex. Here's everything I know. Records, dates, names. I hope this helps reunite your family. Alex took the folder, feeling the weight of the secrets it contained. It doesn't change what you did, he said, his voice firm. But thank you for finally telling the truth. As Alex left Dr. Kowalski's house, he felt as if he were emerging from a nightmare. The world around him seemed different, altered by the truth he now carried. Sitting in his car, he opened the folder and began to read through the documents. Silent tears streamed down his face as he absorbed every detail. The names of the other 2 girls, Bianca and Emilia, their health conditions at birth, the carefully constructed lies to hide their existence. With trembling hands, Alex picked up his phone and dialed the number of Donna Teresa, his trusted housekeeper. Teresa, he said as soon as she answered, I need you to take care of Clara for a few days. I have something important to take care of. Teresa's voice sounded worried on the other end of the line. Are you okay, Mr. Alex? You seem shaken. Alex took a deep breath, trying to control his emotions. No, Teresa, nothing is okay. But it will be. I promise to explain everything when I get back. Ending the call, Alex started the car. His destination was clear, the orphanage Luz du Amanha. It was time to confront Helena, to find his other daughters, to finally unite his shattered family. And as he drove back to the capital, Alex couldn't help but think about Clara. How would she react to learning that she had not just 1 twin sister, but 3? How would he explain to her that for 10 years, part of her family had been hidden away, growing up in an orphanage? And then there was Isabel. Alex's heart ached at the thought of his wife, leaving this world without knowing the truth about her daughters. He made a silent promise to her. I will find them, my love. I will bring them home. Our family will be complete, as it should have been from the beginning. With renewed determination, Alex sped down the road. The path ahead was uncertain, full of emotional and legal challenges, but he was prepared to face any obstacle. The truth, buried for so long, had finally come to light, and with it, the promise of a new beginning for the Müller family. The journey back to the capital seemed endless for Alex. Every kilometer traveled was accompanied by a torrent of emotions, anger, sadness, hope, and above all, an unwavering determination to reunite his family. When he arrived at the orphanage Luz do Amanha, it was already late afternoon. The orange sky contrasted with the turmoil inside. Alex parked the car and, for a moment, stood still, taking a deep breath to prepare himself for what was to come. With firm steps, he walked to the entrance of the orphanage. The receptionist, recognizing him from his previous visit, seemed surprised by his sudden return. "Mr. Muller, Mrs. Fernandez wasn't expecting you today." "I imagine not," Alex replied, his voice thick with restrained emotion. "But I need to speak to her immediately. It's urgent." Sensing the seriousness in his tone, the receptionist nodded and led him to Helena's office. Each step down the hallway made Alex's heart beat faster. Finally, they were at the door. "Mrs. Fernandez, Mr. Muller is here to see you," the receptionist announced after a light knock. Helena's voice sounded from the other end, a mixture of surprise and apprehension. "Alex, come in, please." Opening the door, Alex found Helena sitting behind her desk, a worried expression on her face. She must have noticed something in his eyes because she immediately stood up. "What happened?" she asked, her voice shaking. Alex closed the door behind him, staring at Helena with mixed emotions. "I think you know very well what happened, Helena, or should I call you Nurse Fernandez?" Helena's face paled visibly. She leaned against the table, as if her legs could no longer support her. You found out," she whispered. "Yes, I found out," Alex confirmed, his voice steady. "I found out about the mistake at the hospital, about the 3 babies being wrongly declared dead, about you bringing them here." Helena covered her face with her hands, tears beginning to leak through her fingers. "Alex, I'm so sorry." "So sorry?" "Are you sorry?" Alex repeated, his voice rising. "You hid my daughters from me for 10 years, Helena, 10 years." I know, she sobbed. "But you have to understand, I couldn't leave them. I couldn't allow—" "That what?" Alex pressed. "That they had a family? A father who loved them?" Helena finally looked up, her eyes red with tears. "That they should be separated." "Alex, you don't understand. When I brought them here, they were so fragile, so small. The doctors said they might not survive, so I couldn't risk them being adopted separately, never knowing about each other." Alex felt his anger waver slightly at Helena's obvious distress. "But why not come to me later? Why keep it a secret for so long?" Helena shook her head, looking defeated. At first it was fear of the legal consequences, fear of losing my job, but then it was love, Alex. I loved them as if they were my own daughters. The thought of losing them— "They're not your daughters," Alex said, his voice softer now but still firm. "They're mine and Isabel's." A heavy silence fell over the office. Helena seemed to be struggling internally, decades of secrets and guilt finally coming to the surface. "Where are they?" Alex finally asked. "Sophia, Bianca, and Emilia. I want to see them, all of them." Helena hesitated for a moment before nodding slowly. "They're in the backyard. It's their playtime." Alex turned to leave, but paused with his hand on the doorknob. "Helena, I understand that you believed you were doing the right thing, but what you and the others did, you stole precious years from me and my daughters. That is not something that can be easily forgiven." With those words, he left the office, leaving Helena alone with her thoughts and regrets. Alex's heart was pounding wildly as he made his way to the courtyard. Years of pent-up emotions, mourning not only Isabel, but subconsciously his lost daughters threatened to spill over. When he reached the courtyard, he saw them immediately. 3 identical girls playing together near an old oak tree. Sophia, whom he already knew, and 2 others who he could only assume were Bianca and Emilia. For a moment, Alex stood frozen, taking in the scene. His daughters, all of them, together. Sophia was the first to notice him. Her eyes widened in recognition, and she waved, catching her sister's attention. Slowly, Alex walked towards them, feeling as if each step was taking him to a new life, a reality he could hardly believe. "Hello, girls," he said softly when he was close enough. I'm Alex Muller, and I have something very important to tell you." The 3 of them stared at him with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. Alex took a deep breath, knowing that the words he was about to say next would change their lives forever. "I'm your father," he finally revealed, his voice thick with emotion. "To all of you." The silence that followed was deafening. The girls' expressions ranged from shock to disbelief as they tried to process the information. Sophia was the first to speak, her voice barely above a whisper. "Our father?" Alex nodded, tears beginning to form in her eyes. "Yes, Sophia, and Clara. Clara is your sister too, sister to all of you." The revelations continued to flow, Alex gently explaining about the mistake at the hospital, about how they had been separated, about how he had only now discovered the truth. As he spoke, he watched closely the reactions of his newfound daughters. Shock, confusion, perhaps even a glimmer of hope in one of their eyes. The chapter closes with Alex hesitantly reaching out his arms, offering a hug to his long-lost daughters. The moment is charged with emotion, uncertainty, and the promise of a new beginning for the Müller family. The silence that followed Alex's revelation seemed to stretch on forever. The three girls stared at him, their identical faces displaying a range of emotions that ranged from shock to disbelief to confusion and perhaps a glimmer of hope. Sophia was the first to react, taking a hesitant step towards Alex. Are you sure about this?" she asked, her voice shaking. Alex nodded, feeling a lump in his throat. "I do, Sophia. I've done tests. I've investigated. You're my daughters, mine and Isabel's." Bianca, who had remained silent until then, spoke with a voice full of emotion. "But Aunt Helena always said that we were orphans, that no one wanted us." The words hit Alex like a punch to the gut. The idea that his daughters had grown up believing they had been abandoned was almost unbearable. "That's not true," he said firmly, fighting back tears. "I would have loved to have had them with me from the beginning, if I had known." Emilia, the third sister, who had been watching everything with wide eyes until then, finally spoke. "And Clara? You said she's our sister, too. Why did she stay with you and not us?" The question hung in the air, heavy with pain and unspoken accusation. Alex felt the weight of 10 years of separation, of lost moments and unformed bonds. It was a terrible mistake, Alex explained, choosing his words carefully. A medical error that led to a series of bad decisions. But now that I know the truth, I want to make things right. I want us to be a family. The girls exchanged glances with each other, a silent communication that Alex couldn't decipher. Finally, Sophia spoke again. "And what happens now? Are you going to take us away?" The question was loaded with conflicting emotions: fear, hope, apprehension. Alex took a deep breath. "Only if you want to. I won't force anything. I know you grew up here, that you have a life here. But I would really like to have you in my life to get to know you better." At this moment, Helena appeared in the courtyard, her eyes red from crying. The girls immediately turned to her, searching for the familiar figure amidst the storm of revelations. "Aunt Helena," Bianca called, her voice shaking. "Is it true? Is he really our father?" Helena walked slowly towards them, looking old and tired. "Yes, dear, it's true. I'm sorry I kept this from you for so long." Helena's words seemed to break a dam of emotions. Emilia began to cry silently, while Bianca hugged her. Sophia remained still, her eyes fixed on Alex as if trying to memorize every detail of his face. Alex felt his heart break. He wanted to hug them, to comfort them, but he knew he had to respect their space. They were strangers, after all, bound by blood but separated by years of secrets. "Girls," he said softly, "I know this is a lot to take in. I don't expect you to immediately accept me as your father, but I would like the chance to get to know you, to be a part of your lives." Helena, noticing the tension in the air, intervened. "How about we all sit down and talk calmly? We can go to the living room, have some tea." The girls nodded silently, still looking dazed. As the group made their way into the orphanage, Alex couldn't help but notice how close the three of them stood, forming a cohesive unit. He was the intruder in this dynamic, the alien element in a family that had formed without him. In the living room, sitting on worn but comfortable sofas, the conversation flowed slowly. Alex told her about Clara, about how she had always felt something was missing in her life. She talked about Isabel, the mother they had never met but whose features they carried on their faces. The girls, in turn, gradually began to open up. They shared stories of their childhood in the orphanage, of how they had always felt different from the other children, connected in a way they couldn't explain. "We always knew we were special," Sophia said at one point, a small smile playing on her lips. "But we never imagined this." As the afternoon wore on, the atmosphere in the room began to change. The initial tension gave way to cautious curiosity. The girls asked questions about life outside the orphanage, about Clara, about the house where they might live. Alex answered patiently, his heart filling with hope with each shy smile, each interested look. He began to see distinct personality traits in each of them. Sophia, the natural leader; Bianca, the thoughtful one; Emilia, the conciliator. As night began to fall, Helena suggested that the girls go to dinner and rest. "It's been an emotional day," she said gently. "We all need time to process." Alex agreed, though reluctant to part with his newfound daughters. "Can I come back tomorrow?" he asked, looking hopefully at the girls. To their surprise and delight, they were the ones who responded. "Yes," said Sophia, speaking for all three of them. "We'd like that." As he said goodbye, Alex felt a wave of emotion wash over him. He had entered the orphanage as a man searching for answers and was leaving as a father to 4 extraordinary girls. Driving home, Alex knew the road ahead would be challenging. There were legal issues to be resolved, adjustments to be made, and, most importantly, hearts to be healed. But for the first time in 10 years, he felt real hope. The family he thought he had lost forever was within his reach, and he would do everything in his power to put the broken pieces back together. The days that followed were an emotional roller coaster for everyone involved. Alex, torn between his desire to spend every possible moment with his newfound daughters and the need to prepare Clara for the monumental change in their lives, could barely sleep. One sunny morning, Alex finally gathered the courage to tell Clara the truth. Sitting in the garden of their home, father and daughter shared a quiet moment before the revelation that would change everything. "Clara, dear," Alex began, his voice soft. "Remember when we visited the orphanage and you met Sophia?" Clara nodded, her eyes shining at the mention of her friend. "Yes, Dad, she's amazing. When can we visit again?" Alex took a deep breath. "Actually, I have something very important to tell you about Sophia and 2 other girls you haven't met yet." For the next few minutes, Alex gently explained the situation to Clara. He talked about the mistake at the hospital, about the separated sisters, about how he had only recently discovered the truth. With every word he said, he carefully observed his daughter's reactions, ready to comfort her or clarify any doubts. To her surprise, Clara listened to everything in silence, her big eyes wide with astonishment. When Alex finished, she was quiet for a moment, processing the information. "So," she finally spoke, her voice small, "I have 3 twin sisters?" Alex nodded, feeling a lump in his throat. "Yes, dear. Sophia, Bianca, and Emilia." Clara was silent for a few more moments before a smile slowly spread across her face. "This is amazing. I've always wanted siblings, and now I have 3 at once." Clara's enthusiastic reaction took Alex by surprise. He hugged her tightly, feeling a wave of relief and love. "I'm so proud of you, my love," he whispered. "I know it's a big change, but I promise we'll do it together as a family." In the days that followed, Alex increased his visits to the orphanage. Each encounter with Sophia, Bianca, and Emilia was a mix of discovery and growing connections. He learned that Sophia loved to read and dreamed of being a writer. Bianca had a natural talent for math and would spend hours solving puzzles. Emilia was the artist of the group, always with a sketchbook in hand. Meanwhile, Alex was embroiled in a legal battle to gain custody of the girls. Lawyers were hired, paperwork was filed, and long meetings with social workers became part of his routine. Helena, despite her initial guilt, proved to be a valuable ally in this process. She provided all the necessary documents and testified on Alex's behalf, confirming that the girls were, in fact, his biological daughters. While the adults dealt with the bureaucracy, Clara began visiting her sisters regularly. The four girls formed an almost instant bond, as if they were making up for lost time. Their laughter echoed through the hallways of the orphanage, bringing a new energy to the place. It was during one of these visits that Emilia, the quietest of the four, surprised everyone with a question. "When can we go home?" The silence that followed was filled with emotion. Alex, who had been watching the girls play, felt his heart race. "Do you want to come live with me and Clara?" he asked hesitantly. Sophia, ever the group's spokesperson, responded, "We've talked about it. It's weird and a little scary, but yes, we want to be a real family." Bianca added, "But we don't want to leave Aunt Helena. She took care of us for so long." Alex smiled, touched by the girls' loyalty. "Helena will always be a part of our lives, I promise." The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Alex's home underwent renovations to accommodate the new residents. Rooms were prepared, clothes and toys were purchased, and countless conversations were held to ensure a smooth transition. Finally, after months of legal and emotional preparation, the day arrived when Sophia, Bianca, and Emilia would leave the Yi orphanage for good. The farewell was bittersweet. Tears were shed, promises of frequent visits were made, and Helena hugged each of the girls for a long time, whispering words of love and encouragement. As Alex's car pulled away from the orphanage, with the four girls in the back seat, chatting excitedly, he couldn't help but glance in the rearview mirror, amazed at the scene. His family, finally complete. At home, Donna Teresa was waiting for them with a welcome feast. The old housekeeper, whom Alex considered part of the family, hugged each of the girls, her tears of joy mingling with theirs. That night, after the girls had finally fallen asleep, all huddled together in Clara's room, reluctant to be separated, Alex found himself alone in the living room. Looking at Isabel's picture on the mantelpiece, he felt a mixture of joy and sadness. "We did it, my love," he whispered to the image of his late wife. "Our family is united. I know you would be proud." With his heart full of hope and determination, Alex knew the challenges were not over. Adjusting to the new family dynamic, dealing with past traumas and building new bonds would take time and patience. But looking to the future, he saw not only challenges, but endless possibilities. The full Müller family was finally complete, and together they would face any obstacle that fate threw their way. The newly reunited family's first few days were a mix of joy, chaos, and adjustments. The Müller mansion, once a peaceful place, now vibrated with the energy of four curious and lively preteens. Alex, determined to make up for lost time, made sure to take 2 weeks off work to dedicate himself fully to his daughters. Each day brought new discoveries and challenges. One morning at breakfast, Bianca asked shyly, Can we call you Dad?" The silence that followed was charged with emotion. Alex, feeling a lump in his throat, replied in a choked voice, "I would be honored." Clara, always the bridge between the two worlds, smiled and said, "Welcome to the club of the daughters of the best father in the world." The laughter that followed broke the tension, and Alex felt his heart fill with love. But not all moments were easy. The girls, accustomed to the routine of the orphanage, sometimes felt lost in the grandeur of the mansion. Emilia, in particular, had difficulty sleeping alone in her new room. One night, Alex found her crying silently in the hallway. "What's wrong, dear?" he asked, kneeling down beside her. I miss Aunt Helena," Emilia sobbed, "and the noise of the other children at the orphanage. It's so quiet here." Alex hugged her tenderly, feeling her small body tremble. "I understand, Manu, changes are difficult. How about if you sleep in Clara's room today? And tomorrow, we can call Aunt Helena." Emilia's face lit up at the suggestion, and Alex realized that the adjustment would be a gradual process for everyone. The weeks passed, and slowly a new routine began to settle in. The girls were enrolled in the same school as Clara, a process that generated equal parts anxiety and excitement. On the first day of school, while helping Sophia pack her backpack, Alex noticed something curious. "Sophia, why are you carrying 3 pencil cases?" The girl blushed slightly. "It's just that Isa always forgets her pencils and Manu loses her erasers, so I bring extra for them. Alex smiled, touched by the way the sisters cared for each other. It was a constant reminder of the deep bond they shared, even after years of separation. As the girls adjusted to their new lives, Alex faced his own challenges. Balancing the emotional needs of 4 preteens with the demands of his business was no easy task. Many nights he found himself up late, reviewing reports while listening intently for any sound that indicated one of the girls needed him. It was during one of these nights that Clara surprised him, entering silently into his office. "Father," she called softly. "Can I talk to you?" Alex immediately dropped what he was doing. "Sure, honey. What's wrong?" Clara hesitated for a moment before speaking. I sometimes feel guilty." "Guilty? Why?" Alex asked, worried. "Because I had you all these years while Sophia, Isa and Manu were in the orphanage," she replied, tears forming in her eyes. "It's not fair." Alex felt his heart clench. He pulled Clara into a tight hug. "Oh, my love, none of this is your fault. You don't have to feel bad about being loved. The important thing is that we're all together now." Clara sniffled against his chest. "I know, Dad, but sometimes I'm afraid they'll hate me for it." Alex pulled away gently, looking into his daughter's eyes. "Clara, your sisters love you. They're just as happy to have you as you are to have them. We're a family now, all together." The words seemed to calm Clara, and she smiled through her tears. "Thank you, Dad. I love you, all of you." Moments like this were frequent in the new dynamics of the Müller family. Each day brought new revelations, small adjustments, and above all, a growing love that united everyone. Alex knew the road ahead would still be full of challenges. There were deep emotional issues to work through, years of separation to overcome. But looking at his 4 daughters, seeing how they supported each other, laughed together, and faced each new day with courage, he knew they had made the right choice. The Müller family was healing, growing, and growing stronger every day. And Alex was determined to ensure that the love and unity they now shared would never be shaken again. As he closed Clara's bedroom door after putting her to bed, Alex made a silent promise to himself and Isabel. He would dedicate every moment of his life to being the best father he could be to his 4 extraordinary girls. The future, once uncertain, now shone with endless possibilities. And together as a family, they were ready to face whatever came their way. As the months passed, the Müller family found their rhythm. The girls flourished in their new surroundings, each developing their own unique talents and personalities. Alex watched with pride as his daughters grew, not only in stature, but in confidence and mutual understanding. Yet beneath the surface of newfound normality, deeper currents of emotion and memory began to stir. It was on a Sunday afternoon, during a family lunch, that the past finally emerged in an unexpected way. Sophia, always the most curious of the 4, placed her fork down on her plate and looked directly at Alex. "Dad," she began, her voice shaking slightly, "could you tell us more about our mother?" The request took Alex by surprise. He looked around the table, seeing the expectant faces of his 4 daughters. Even Clara, who had grown up hearing stories about Isabel, seemed eager for more. Alex cleared his throat, feeling a mix of emotions. "Of course, dear, what would you like to know?" The questions came cascading. What was she like? What did she like? How did she and Alex meet? The girls were thirsty for information about the mother they had never met. With a heavy heart but determined to be honest, Alex began to share. He talked about Isabel's radiant smile, her passion for literature, her dream of one day opening a children's bookstore. He told her about the day they met at a technology fair where Isabel was promoting a new educational software. "She had the same eyes as you," Alex said softly, looking at each of his daughters in turn, full of curiosity and kindness. Amelia, the artist of the group, shyly asked to see more photos. Alex nodded, getting up to look for albums that had long been stored away. As they flipped through the pages, reliving moments frozen in time, Bianca asked the question that hung in the air. "Dad, what was it like on that night when we were born?" The silence that followed was heavy. Alex closed his eyes for a moment, gathering his courage. "It was a difficult night," he began slowly. "Your mother went into labor prematurely. I was so scared, so worried." He talked about the rush at the hospital, the doctor's concern, the long moments of uncertainty. He talked about hearing the first cry, Clara, and the momentary joy he felt. "But then," he continued, his voice breaking, "things started to go wrong. The doctors were agitated. There was confusion." Alex stopped, fighting back tears. Clara, sitting next to him, took his hand, offering silent support. "When they told me that her mother had not survived, I felt like my world had ended," he admitted. "And then they handed me Clara, so small and fragile. At that moment, I promised myself and Isabel that I would do everything to protect her." The girls listened in silence, tears streaming down their faces. Sophia was the first to speak. "What about us? What happened to us?" Alex took a deep breath. "The doctors made a terrible mistake. The three of you were declared prematurely dead. When they realized their mistake, they panicked. It was then that Helena, who was a nurse at the time, decided to take you to the orphanage." The silence that followed was deafening. The girls processed the information, trying to reconcile this new narrative with everything they had experienced. "So, we weren't abandoned?" Emilia asked in a low voice. "Never," Alex replied firmly. "If I had known, I would have moved heaven and earth to find you. You have always been loved. You have always been wanted." The words seemed to break an invisible barrier. Suddenly, all four girls threw themselves into Alex's arms, a group hug filled with tears, sobs, and most of all, love. In that moment, as he held his four daughters, Alex felt as if Isabel was there with them, her spirit enveloping, the family in an ethereal embrace. "Your mother would be so proud of you," he whispered. "So happy we're all together now." The rest of the afternoon was spent going through photo albums, sharing stories, and for the first time truly grieving the loss of Isabel together. It was a painful but necessary healing process. As night fell, the girls, emotionally exhausted, but somehow lighter, retired to their rooms. Alex remained in the living room staring at a picture of Isabel. "We're doing the best we can, my love," he murmured to the image. "I hope we're honoring your memory." That night, the Müller mansion felt different. The echoes of the past, once distant whispers, were now an integral part of the present. And with this acceptance came a new sense of peace, of mutual understanding. The family had taken another important step in their journey of healing and unity. The future, though still uncertain, seemed a little brighter, illuminated by the shared love and memory of a mother who, even in her absence, continued to unite them all. Time, that relentless master of transformation, followed its inexorable course. 2 years had passed since that afternoon of revelations and tears, and the Müller family found themselves in a very different place, both physically and emotionally. It was a sunny Saturday morning, and the Müller mansion was bustling with activity. Alex, now with a few more grey hairs, watched with a smile on his face as his 4 daughters, now 12 years old, ran around, getting ready for a special day. "Dad," Clara called from the top of the stairs, "have you seen my camera? I can't forget." "To record everything today," Alex laughed. "It's on the living room table, honey, along with the extra batteries you asked for." Sophia emerged from the library carrying a stack of books. "Do you think I've brought too much reading?" she asked, her face partially hidden behind the rickety tower of volumes. "For a day at the park? Maybe a little," Alex replied with a fond smile. "How about we just pick 2? Bianca appeared in the kitchen, holding a picnic basket. "I put in extra fruit, Dad. I remember Aunt Helena loves strawberries." Alex's heart filled with pride as he saw his daughter's care. Helena, although no longer living at the orphanage, remained an important part of their lives. Emilia was the last to appear, her sketchbook clutched tightly to her chest. "I'm ready," she announced softly. Alex looked at his 4 daughters, amazed at how much they had grown and changed in the past 2 years. Clara, always the leader, had become a talented amateur photographer. Sophia, the intellectual of the group, had already talked about wanting to be a writer when she grew up. Bianca, with her sharp mind for numbers, dreamed of being an engineer, like her father, and Emilia, the sensitive artist, was increasingly expressing herself through her paintings and drawings. "Well done, Team Müller," Alex announced with a smile. "All aboard! We have a special day ahead of us." Their destination that day was Ibirapuera Park, the green heart of the capital. But it wasn't just a simple weekend outing, it was a celebration, the second anniversary of the family reunion. When they arrived at the park, they found Helena waiting for them under a large tree, a warm smile on her wrinkled face. The girls rushed to hug her, each eager to share the news since their last visit. As the children spread out across the lawn, setting up their picnic and preparing for a day of play, Alex and Helena sat on a nearby bench watching the scene. "They're blooming, Alex," Helena commented, her eyes shining with excitement. "You did an amazing job." Alex shook his head. "We did, Helena. We couldn't have done it without your help and support all this time." The two shared a comfortable moment of silence, reflecting on the journey that had brought them to this point. The legal challenges, the family therapy sessions, the sleepless nights dealing with nightmares and insecurities. Each obstacle they had overcome had made them stronger as a family. "You know," Alex began, his gaze fixed on the girls who were laughing and playing, "sometimes I find myself wondering what it would be like if Isabel were here to see this." Helena placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "She is, Alex. Somehow she's here living through them, don't you see? Every smile, every laugh is an echo of her." Helena's words touched Alex deeply. He watched his daughters more closely. The way Clara threw her head back when she laughed, just as Isabel did. Sophia's frown of concentration as she read, a gesture so familiar. Bianca's kindness as she shared her snack, reminiscent of her mother's generosity. And Emilia's dreamy gaze as she drew, capturing the essence of the world around her, just as Isabel used to do with her words. "You're right," Alex whispered, feeling a surge of emotion. "She's here, in each of them." The day unfolded as a perfect blend of laughter, games, shared stories, and quiet moments of contemplation. As the sun began to set, painting the capital's sky in shades of orange and pink, the family gathered for a photo. "Everyone together now," Clara instructed, setting the camera's timer before running to join the group. In that moment, with his 4 daughters around him, Helena smiling beside them and Isabel's spirit hovering invisibly over everyone, Alex felt a sense of fulfillment that he would never have imagined possible a few years ago. The camera snapped away, capturing not just an image but a moment of pure happiness and togetherness. A family that had overcome adversity, that had found each other through loss and love, and that now faced the future together, stronger than ever. As they walked back to the car, the girls excitedly discussing plans for the upcoming weekend, Alex looked up at the starry sky that was beginning to reveal itself. "Thank you, Isabel," he murmured softly, "for this incredible gift. I promise to take good care of it." And so, under the protective cloak of night, the Müller family moved forward, each step a celebration of their past, an affirmation of their present, and a promise for the future. United by love, strengthened by trials, and guided by the memory of the one who brought them together even in absence. The road ahead still held challenges, of course. There would be teenage arguments, heartbreaks, dreams achieved and others postponed. But Alex knew with a certainty that came from deep within his soul that they would face it all together. Because now they were more than just father and daughters. More than just a family brought together by extraordinary circumstances. They were the Müllers, united, resilient, and above all, complete.